You're listening to Pushing the Envelope, Life at the Cutting Edge of Customs Innovation. I'm Tom Muller with the Cross-Border Research Association. On this show, we explore the frontiers of customs creativity in conversations with customs and logistics experts, technology innovators, research scientists, and other leaders in the field. Industry insiders call this show the Pencast because it's part of PenCP, a network for boosting customs innovation funded by the European Union under the Horizon 2020 program. Today, I'm speaking with members of AELER, a forward-thinking logistics firm that's bringing advanced technologies to the container, the building block of our global economy, and to the ecosystem that surrounds the container. With me are Naik Londono, founder and co-CEO of AELER Technologies, and Gadi Benmoshe, Port Network Lead and AELERian. Hello, Naik and Gadi. Thank you very much for joining me on Pushing the Envelope.
Thanks, Tom. Pleasure to be here.
Hi, Tom.
To start off, maybe you could give our listeners a brief word about your backgrounds and the origins of AELER and what brought you to the firm. Naik, perhaps you could describe your role and the origins of AELER.
Sure, absolutely, with pleasure. Again, thanks for inviting us here. I'm Naik. So I'm originally not from the industry. I'm an engineer, a neuroengineer by training. So I worked a little bit more on at the interface between the human body and technologies. You can relate that to data science quite a bit, but it gives you a little bit of a hint also in terms of where some of the roots of the company also where we're really adamant from the beginning to work on quality data for the logistic industry. I have had some dabbling moments also in the logistic industry in my past, and sort of the linking between that and what my co-founder also lived through and his expertise in terms of materials, microtechnologies, and so on led to the company that we built. And basically, the whole premise is that the container has not changed for over 60 years, and that is quite unthinkable when you think of the central role that it plays in global maritime transportation. And so we transformed it using materials, IoT, and embedded intelligence to be able to monitor what is happening, and an emphasis on sustainability as well.
Fascinating. Each one of these sentences we can unpack during the course of the conversation, and we may need more than one conversation to do that.
Sure.
Gadi, could you describe your role at the company and your prior experience? Well, what is a Port Network Lead?
Okay, I will try and explain that, and it starts from my experience. I'm in the maritime supply chain for more than 15 years, most of them as CIO of the Israel Ports Company, where I was responsible of the Israeli port community system, working very close with the Israeli customs, that it was a central stakeholder of the port community system. And also all those years I'm active at international organizations such as International Port Community System Association, IMO, the International Maritime Organization, and IAPH, International Association of Ports, in which I am also a vice chair of the Data Collaboration Committee. So I bring all this experience to AELER as a Port Network Lead, exposing AELER to this AELER solution to the maritime supply chain stakeholders, such as PCS and customs, exploring with them the benefits of AELER Smart Container can bring to their operations.
So you're really, let's say, the interface between the innovative technologies that AELER is producing and the end users and various other potential beneficiaries of that technology in the broader customs arena.
You can put it this way.
Fascinating, because that's part of the role of PenCP is to create this kind of network where great ideas, on the one hand, manage to meet with the people who need them, and quite often in the real world that connection isn't made. So your role is critical, and it's also very much in tune with PenCP and with this podcast.
And indeed, the customs is one of the focus areas that we are doing mainly this year.
I see. In what sense?
Okay. As I said, we are exploring with different stakeholders, and we believe that customs and the customs practitioners have a lot to get advantages from AELER solutions. So we are focusing our efforts this year, talking and investing in exploring use cases with customers.
Fascinating. Very good. So, Naik, perhaps you could tell me a bit about UnitOne, which, if I understand correctly, is your flagship product. You mentioned this, and it's amazing that in 60 years the container has not changed materially. What are UnitOne's most innovative features, and where did the inspiration for it come from?
Yeah. So, the core concept, which is interesting to think about, is currently, and this is going to be a little bit blunt, but the container has no purpose other than being a box, right? A container is just a shell. That's its main function. It should be the cheapest shell that can handle, 92 tons per pillar. That's it. So make a box that is as cheap as possible. But the container is much more than this in terms of the burden that it is to customers, right? I mean, depending on the cargo that you're putting inside it, you need to therefore protect that cargo. I mean, the shell is just part of the equation. So there are a lot of additional efforts that customers usually, by customers I mean cargo owners need to expend in order to be able to get their cargo to be transported or to be at least packaged safely from one end to the other. So that's where we start rethinking the container itself and thinking, okay, what's the best container that can actually serve as a value addition to these cargo owners? How can we reduce as much as possible operational burden, but also bring visibility and, reduce, improve the sustainability, if you want. So reduce the CO2 impact of transportation. So the result is a container that is made out of composite materials. That's the first layer of innovation that we do, which is already quite complex, where we're bringing aerospace technologies into the most grunt and cheap-oriented industry in terms of mind for the building of these containers that you can think of. But we're really thinking not of the container as a shell again, but more as an added value. So that's the initial layer. And the second one is that these containers basically have all the monitoring capabilities that are needed to be able to, with a satisfactory way, provide information about the cargo, about the container when it's moving. Security is a big aspect for us. So we're really aiming, and this is where it becomes important for also customs operation, to be a reliable source of what is actually happening while the container is moving with the cargo, with a big emphasis on security.
And so just to think about that for a minute, what would be, if you're tracking the movement of this cargo, which I gather is not normally done? I mean, it's just a box for 90 tons, as you say, a normal container. This UnitOne is actually a GPS tracked device. What would be a flag to customs that that box might need to be inspected? I mean, does it stop at a certain place for unexpectedly? Would that cause customs to look at it more, or what would be the sort of red flags?
Yeah, that's a good question. And just to be clear, I mean, there are right now more and more efforts that are being done on the visibility side, right? And mostly it's what you're mentioning. There will be some tracking, GPS tracking, maybe in the best scenario. I really want to emphasize that here the specialty of that container is that it's twofold. There's a physical component which makes the container more efficient and protects cargo better when it's being transported, so it reduces the risk towards the transportation of that cargo inherently, physically. We're talking about, better insulation and so on. And then on the visibility side, we're talking about the entire shell being connected. That means that things like security, opening of the doors, it's not only where the container is located at a certain point in time, but what are the events that are happening inside the container on the shell itself. So are the doors being opened or not, which can be all elements that would be a trigger to tell customs something might have happened there that we should definitely have a look at.
Fascinating. So you're creating windows on the behavior and not only protecting the contents, but creating windows on the behavior of these contents as they move through space.
Yes.
That essentially don't have equivalents. I mean, this is
at this level, no, because we are not adding a device, but the entire container is a device, if you want, in terms of how it's connecting with the cargo that is inside, right? So we're really having the container itself designed to be smart.
Nice. The container itself is a device. I like that. It's a large device, but a device.
Very large device.
Gadi, how can AELER's UnitOne improve customs operations, do you think?
Yeah, this is something that we invested a lot of efforts this last period of time, talking with customs and customs practitioners, exploring how we can enhance customs operations. And mainly we started looking what are the pain points of customs. And customs, most of the customs around the world, they want to minimize the physical inspection of containers and maximize the percent of success in the physical inspection. So we found out that with AELER smart container, customs can reshape the operations and improve the efficiency and enhance the risk assessment of the customs. I can give you 2 use cases that we are talking about. One of them, and part of that Naik mentioned, is the use of the track and trace feature of AELER. The smart container reports to the control tower, and that's how we call the system that receives all the information from the containers. And this control tower can also operate an algorithm identifying the geographical location and the time of arrival of passing through a designated area. In the case of a suspicious route change, because we know where the container is going to where, and or delays that are not caused by traffic jams or unplanned stops of the container, it can be identified as an activity, suspicious, unauthorized activity with the cargo. So this information can immediately be transferred and reported to the customs, and the customs can add it to the risk score, and using this information, they can trigger the need of physical inspection and other inspection. So this is one. And the other one that it's not less important, and also was mentioned by Naik before, is the door opening feature. And again, also it's something different when you're using an embedded IoT like AELER and not an add-on. Okay, because the customs want to know not only that the door wasn't open, but all the container, nobody cut something from the side, okay, and open the container. And with other, when container is open in some way, we have other sensors like luminosity, humidity that is changing when it is open. All of that, we know that it was open, but also this information, when it was open, we see the where it was open, not it was open, but also where and also when. So we can give a context to the information. It's not only it was open, yes or no, but the context of where and when. And with this information, the customs also again can decide. We believe that there are 2 use cases that can bring valuable information for the customs, and the risk, they can enrich the customs risk management algorithms. Again, that means that there will be fewer containers to check and higher hit rate when inspecting those ones that are suspicious. So this is what we are doing with customs and the advantage that it can bring to them.
Internet of Things. That's something that appears a fair bit in AELER literature and the literature surrounding it. Very good. And I would imagine that these 2 case scenarios would also be helpful for other players in the universe. So, I mean, logistics companies, could you speak to that?
Yeah, they are, and that's the reason, as I said, that we are talking to other stakeholders and exploring with them. And one of those are the port community systems. Port community systems are a strong player in the ports, exchanging information between the different stakeholders and the members of the maritime supply chain. And those port community systems today have only some typed-in information around the members that they type in. But now we are talking about a container that's sending actual information. Okay, so one of the one of the use cases that we are exploring with them is that the approaching terminal notification. Okay, we can tell because we know that our container will reach a terminal, let's say in 2 hours from now. We can send the information through the port community system to the pod. They can expect us and also maybe send us information or an alert if there is some information missing. Okay, so we can prevent delays in the gate of the pods.
Wow,
so this is
that's
another
huge
example that we are exploring with pod community systems.
That's huge. And you mentioned algorithms. Is this something that you're actively developing, or is this something you co-develop with your stakeholders?
We use those explorations with the stakeholders to enhance our algorithms developed in our control tower. We have a number of digital solutions which we developed.
Fascinating. Oh, this is super interesting. So Naik, tell me a little bit about the CAAS, Container as a Service, your model. What innovations does this model bring to the table?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we indeed don't only innovate on the technologies themselves, right? On the container, both physical and digital, but also on the way it's distributed to the industry. As we target a lot the cargo owners directly, and we try to really understand their pain points and solve them through these technologies. What we have basically developed is a business model which is well known in other industries, but less here, which is as a service. So CAAS basically means containers as a service, where we provide a container on a utilization basis rather than on the typical, more traditional, I'm selling you that container or I'm leasing it to you on the long term. What that means is that our customers don't necessarily need to be experienced asset managers. On the contrary, actually, we're not telling them at all that you need to be even knowledgeable about asset management to be able to use the specific asset that you want, right? And that bridges a gap between, not getting exactly the right sort of equipment for your needs, so having to adapt yourself to the equipment. Usually there's a lot of patch-up work that needs to happen in order to be able to get your cargo inside a standard container. And the other way around, right? It also makes sure that there is a consistency in the equipment that you're getting, especially if your cargo requires has specific requirements, like on the flexi tank transportation, right? So bulk liquid transportation, you need containers that are of good quality, recent, that are not dented because they could damage the bag, and they could, you could have a perforation and then leakage. You need to have strong walls, which in the latest containers is actually becoming weaker and weaker because the walls are becoming thinner. So you need to reinforce usually the container. So there's a lot of headache, a lot of work that needs to happen on the containers that you receive. Here it's a way basically for you to be able to guarantee yourself a container that can constantly be up to your standards, actually even more, because on the flexi tank side, we can load up to almost 20% more cargo inside the container. So there's that win-win, right? That they try to get, and we make it hassle-free. Operationally, you can still get your container exactly in the same way. You get it in the depot where you traditionally used to, or at least you get it in a depot, and you just return it on the destination at another of our depots. And then it's not your responsibility anymore. So that's what it actually brings on the table, is that flexibility of usage. And while you're using it, you get access to the full technology. So that is the container, but the services that come around as well, access to the visibility platform, the data, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really a window of services that we provide through CAAS.
Sort of a turnkey solutions kind of approach, that everything is taken care of, and all of the liaison and advisory roles that maybe are not present in your end user, you supply.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. That must be a huge weight off the mind of people who potentially want to invest in your containers, but are not sure. They're up to the task, because I would. Yeah, this revolutionary sort of thing would require some new knowledge as well to use properly.
And that's the thing, right? I mean, usually the customers that not all in the industry are knowledgeable asset managers, right? And it's a difficult thing because you need to be therefore managing that cost as well globally. And we remove that from the table. And there is a great win-win also that we can build between, again, the end customer, but also the service providers, because we don't do any logistics. We just provide the service, the technologies of the access to the container, but anything else we don't do. This is really a support. So we work with a lot of fantastic freight forwarders that are able to encapsulate this also in the offering that they have for their customers, right? Giving them additional flexibility, which in the end, they can rely on us to make sure that things work on the asset management side, and they just have to provide the additional benefits.
I see. So you're really creating a network of experts in different fields. You're not trying to do everything yourself.
No, absolutely not.
Well, teamwork is the name of the game in this.
Absolutely.
Many things. Yeah.
It's essential in logistics, right? I mean, you don't have anything transported anywhere without teamwork. So.
Yeah. Excellent. And we've talked a lot about containers, and justifiably so, but there's more to AELER than just containers, right? I mean, what other work are you doing that our listeners should know about?
So in general, it's a little bit of what we have mentioned before. The second layer behind the container is intelligence, right? So what information are we able to provide you that would simplify your work? And here is where we do a lot of work with different stakeholders, right? So the main stakeholders that we try to address the pain points of are the cargo owners again. So what can we help you with in terms of your cargo management, the risk that you might be facing here and there, the quality of your cargo that is guaranteed? How much can we help you also in terms of sustainability metrics, right? That you can quantify and report on. But then there are all the other stakeholders, right? Like, again, the logistics service providers, while they're servicing these customers, how can we help them, right? Make it more efficient, be more precise and accurate on just on time in terms of information that they're providing their customers. How can we help customs, remove one load from their shoulders and be informed, aware about what's happening with a certain container that might be a risk, right? That is coming in, basically. It's management of risk, right? Management of flows and risk. So we're giving information that help them unload both these things. And there's basically also a layer of algorithms, AI, that can support specific actions, pain points, things that are known. It's always there to support the current workflows that exist, but with more reliable information.
Fascinating. I love the mention of pain points, etc. It's very graphic, and and one sympathizes with your customers. But I can see how the kinds of solutions that you provide, the kinds of transparency that you provide, would be a real pain reliever for a lot of end users.
Yeah.
In your website, you talk about revolution in log tech and logistics technology mashup, and you say, just like in biotech, fintech, medtech, and other sectors, technology is transforming logistics, facilitating global trade, and reducing the industry's environmental footprint. So how is technology transforming logistics? We've talked about it to some extent, but are there other aspects you want to look at?
Oh, that's a vast subject. That would be probably some content for a few podcasts on that alone. But look, I think technology in general is really a force for change in general, right? And where you push really puts the emphasis on how that change can be positive or negative, and it really needs to be thought through with a lot of sensitivity, right? In what is done. Logistics is a behemoth of an industry that has the particularity of being extremely fragmented and to be, by its own nature, extremely spread geographically, right? You literally one trade, one event touches the entire globe, which means different jurisdictions, different stakeholders, different cultures. It's a very, very complex environment. Change in that environment is therefore very difficult. And that is where technology is able to play a role, right? There is, on the one hand, information, but also there are a lot of physical actions that happen in that specific industry, which doesn't in others, right? So if you take just the other industries, if you take just the internet, by its very definition, yes, you have service and so on, but a lot of it happens on the information side. A lot of what happens in maritime transportation, in global logistics, is physical. So there is, and this is where traditionally the emphasis has been a lot on information over the past few decades, to the expense of how much are we also using technology to transform physically our worlds for the better. And there are so many different things that are fabulous, that are happening there, from innovations on the vessels, for example, to try to reduce significantly the environmental footprint. I think a lot of the emphasis that our customers are really looking for right now, and in general the industry is really pushing for, is being able to get a grip on the environmental impact of our activities in general. So inherently, maritime transportation is, the greenest form of transportation, but there is also so much that it can actually do to be better and to be more reliable, to be able to help, to speed up, be more reliable, and so on, to help also bring more volumes actually into the lowest forms of transportation in terms of carbon emission. So I think technology is really helping on structural elements. It's helping in information, how we exchanging, how we collaborate, how we make the world a little bit more like a village in general, right? And are able to fluidify these intentions that we have to exchange, right, with one another across the world. So LogTech is an extremely broad term that just encompasses all the technologies that are trying to bridge the gap in logistics in general, whether that's global logistics, as we're saying it, and you can even go down to last mile, which has been a little bit more at the forefront of the news over the past maybe two decades.
Mm-hmm. Inspiring. Yeah, it is a big picture question, but you've given a very excellent big picture answer. So thank you. Yeah, thank you for your insights. Gadi, customs administrations talk a lot about the importance of implementing single window functionality to increase efficiency and ease of use. Do you see AELER technologies contributing to this evolution of the customs environment?
Yes, single window is indeed an essential tool to increase efficiency and in the supply chain. And I myself participate in a number of single window activities. There's a lot of single windows. It's custom single windows. There's also the maritime single window that now the International Maritime Organization is doing as compulsory. And so this is very important. So I take it into account when working with AELER. But in these systems, single window is great, it's important, but those systems, somewhere in the way the information was typed in by a person. Okay, it may be a custom agent or a freight forwarder, but some way along the process, somebody typed the information. So this is not always reliable or accurate information. And as I mentioned before, when the container is the one that is sending the information, it's receiving information directly from the source. And when you receive the information directly from the source, this information is reliable, it's accurate, prevents human errors. And I believe, and recently I gave also a workshop on automation in ports, and talking about smart container that's part of the automation of ports. Okay, so because the smart container is the one that will talk directly tomorrow to the single window, but also to the crane or to the terminal operating system. So this is what I believe that the value that the smart containers like AELER bring to the single window.
I see. You say talk directly. What's happening now? I mean, what currently happens? Someone else, an external person, scans the container. Is it that sort of third party interaction?
Yeah, but what in a different again, there is digitation and digitalization. Okay, so we are in the part of digitizing. Okay, because there is OCR, optical character recognition, that a camera reads the number of the container. But with a smart container, you don't have to read it. You can talk with the IoT that tells you, I am, this one. There are problems with the OCR. They don't success reading all the number of the containers of the license plates and so on. But now we are talking about talking directly. And today, somebody type it, maybe OCR use it, maybe other things, but we are talking in a different way of working. That's the reason that we call it reshaping the operation.
Right. Yeah, reshaping does sound like an accurate description of what you're doing. Could you describe some of your collaborative work with the WCO and their study on smart security devices in this context of reshaping the customs landscape?
Yes, it's a great example of reshaping things. We had a great collaboration also with the WCO. And recently, we started participating in a study that WCO is doing about smart security devices. But when we read this study, mainly they were describing the development of the container security devices, which were developed over the years from mechanical seals, a seal that closed mechanically the door, through some, call it e-seals that also have some information inside this seal, and IoT-equipped seals that also can report something. But this is more, we call it, when you talk about innovation, there is something called incremental innovation.
Yeah.
It's just improving the seals, from one seal to another. Again, here, we suggested, and I'm happy to say that WCO accepted our proposal, and we are writing one chapter to this study, talking about disruptive innovation. Let's not talk about seals. Let's talk how a smart container can be an alternative to custom seals. And as one of the use cases that I talked before, at the moment that you know the door opening and you know all of those information about the door opening, I don't need these seals. You know how much operational burden it's sealing and opening and sending it from one place to another and returning the seal to the port or to the authority. It's a lot of logistic burden that can be here deleted at all. So it's a different kind of thinking that I'm proud and that will be part of a WCO study, and I hope that it will be a start of continuous collaborations with other customs authorities around the world.
That's fascinating. I had a recent podcast with Ricardo Treviño Chapa, who is, among other things, very forward-thinking and very innovation-minded, and I can see how that collaboration would be very fruitful. So basically, you're saying that your smart containers do everything that the smart seals would be doing, plus a bunch more, and therefore making smart seals essentially unnecessary.
I like the plus a bunch more. That's the right thing.
Right. No, this is fascinating stuff. I need to start sending things so that I can actually follow this in real time.
Okay.
I need a
new exporter.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I got to get busy. So, yeah, Gadi, a key part of, as I said, PenCP itself is the network thinking and identifying products and technologies already being used in certain fields and bringing them into applying them in the customs context. Is AELER a good example of this sort of network thinking? If so, how?
First of all, I believe it is a good example. But first of all, with PenCP, we had a great collaboration, and from the first meeting that we had, and I would like to use this opportunity to thank you, to thank UA, and all the PenCP team for this collaboration. And yes, it's a great example of how PenCP and its members can continue the search of innovative solutions. And in my opinion, in this example, you can see how it shall be done. And I think you have to invest in three things. First of all, invest time in searching or scouting for new solutions. You need to invest time for listening with an open mind, because, humans are usually first, we find the flaws of a solution. Okay, so we think that we first have to find and look for three good things of any good idea, and that is brought to the table. And only after that you can think about the flaws. And the third thing that you have is to invest time performing proof of concept. It's not enough having it around the table. It's great. Having academic research is great. We need it, and AELER is one of the examples of great research. But at the end, you need to do the proof of concept. You need to go to the field and do a proof of concept. This is why we, as I said at the beginning, we want to invest in exploring with customs, and we allocated also resources doing a number of POCs with customs this year, and we call any customs that want to reshape the operations with the AELER smart container to contact us and start the journey.
Fascinating. Yeah, well put. Very, very well put. Naik, AELER uses the words innovation and sustainability quite a lot. How do you put these concepts, valuable concepts, into concrete practice?
Yep, very clearly. Well, so I hope the innovation side came through during the discussion that we had, right? The point is, again, thinking about what the problems are, not having technologies for their sake, but for their own sake, but what are we actually trying to solve, and how can we combine also different technologies? So I think here, innovation on our side, it really translates into physical innovation, digital innovation, and also market innovation, right? Business model innovation. That's where we try to have a big emphasis. So that was the container as a service model. On the sustainability side, look, sustainability is at the core of what we do, right? There is the short story that literally the whole concept, the whole business between me and my co-founder started on the notion of trying to improve also the sustainability of the logistic industry, right? How can we make it more sustainable? Sustainable, can mean lots of things, and it includes also emissions in general. And here again, sustainability comes in different forms, right? There is the efficiency with which you are using the equipments that you have. So, long story short, it goes into how you're designing things, right? That can be the physical objects, that can be the digital objects, that can be the interfaces between parties, like Gadi was saying before, and also how you're enabling the entire flow from being more efficient in general. So extracting sustainability as a result of also gaining time and reducing waste in the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. Right. I see. Yeah. No, it's how could you help me with it? Just a curiosity. How does a neuroengineer get into smart containers and the broader questions of log tech?
You have to start by this. In Switzerland, we have lots of mountains, as you can know. So we had a little bit that tradition with David, my co-founder, to go for hikes. This is like a national sport. People like to hike here in Switzerland, and I don't know, the fresh air of the mountains make you think about grand things, right? So we're really thinking about how to tackle some broader problems in society. And I'm really taking it from the top. But one of those was really, just not necessarily a problem, but somewhere where we saw lots of inefficiencies, which was logistics. And then it's, the point is contributing to that space. How you contribute, then that's your individual capabilities. The fact that I'm a neuroengineer, that my co-founder is a microengineer, are just like the skill sets that we started with, which are an advantage. But of course, we're missing other skill sets, which are the things that we surround ourselves with. since then. So that's also, again, you mentioned team work before. It's not, do we have the solution to know how everything can be fixed? No. Do we have the willingness and an idea of a path of how to fix some of them and to scale them? Yes. And then can we surround ourselves with the people that can actually complement, the skill sets and the understanding that we have? That's the path that we have been on for the past 6 years.
Right. No, and yeah, coming from the outside of a problem, especially a problem that's been a challenge that's been deeply rooted for 60 years, hasn't materially moved. It's helpful sometimes to be
an outsider,
looking at it with new eyes, right?
There's a lot of aha moments when we explain what we do, because it's true, like people don't think about it, but the container has not changed in 60 years. And that little notion makes you realize, oh shit, it is something that was always in front of me and I never reconsidered too much. And those things, indeed, for some of these things, it helps coming with fresh eyes.
Right. And you have this probably oh shit moment, and then we've got our work cut out for us, right? Yeah. There's a lot of work ahead of us.
There is a lot, I can tell you that, yeah.
And Gadi, you represent part of the deep knowledge of the customs world that Naik and others are drawing on in order to make these great ideas, proof of concept in the real world. How is it for you working with someone that is completely out of the customs sphere, coming in with some pretty groundbreaking notions of how to proceed?
First of all, I very admire what this company is doing. Okay, again, being so many years in the industry, and yes. Nothing changed with the container. I myself also never thought about that. Never give thought about that. So for me, it's a very important thing to contribute to this change to the industry and bringing my part to the teamwork with knowledge about the processes. Because again, it's the box, but around the box there's a lot of stakeholders, a lot of processes, and this is the part that I bring to the table in AELER.
Yeah, no, exactly, and it's a table where everyone is moving around, shifting. Each of the different participants, their industries are evolving rapidly. So it's an interesting challenge to put that mosaic together.
It is.
Yeah. So what's next for AELER? And not that you don't have already enough challenges on your plate, but what are the new tech challenges you're planning on taking on? And more broadly, what do you think is most needed in the future to make the customs environment run more efficiently, transparently, swiftly, safely?
Yeah. The answer there is a little bit simpler, actually. Look, we're already well in our way. We have now we're going to have several thousand containers out this year, right? So we're basically in our initial phase of real industrialization with quite large customers out there. The next phase for us is to continue solving problems for them, right? Because even if we're talking about just a few thousand containers, that's just a drop in the ocean compared to the problems that we're getting as a request, right? To try and help solve. So continuing to solve these problems, making data reliable. So being able to be the technology and service support that some most important stakeholders need in the industry. So here again, focusing on the cargo owners, on the logistics service providers, on customs and operations in general. And we will have definitely also, right now we have a 20-foot container. The 40-foot, which is a little bit the broader market, so 40-foot high cube is also coming up over the next few months. So this you can stay tuned for, because from that point on, there are some quite nifty technologies that are going to be included in it.
Wow, that's exciting. 40-foot, did you say?
40-foot high cube, yeah.
That's so. Is that a next? I mean, that's a next generation in terms of just of size, or also the technology that you're equipping it with?
There is the size is just our way to fit to the standards. So what we do is always technologies, right? So we are basically solving specific issues there, and there are definitely some quite nifty things that are cooking.
Nice. I'll close with one of your corporate sort of principles that caught my eye, and that is daring. I'll quote your website. "We are here to change the world and believe that together we can do it. AELER is a place where you can take risks and make decisions." What risks have you taken, and how have they worked out? Good and bad,
Again, I think even the core principle of thinking that you can touch the container and change it is an initial risk, because it's extremely ingrained in how we work. So there is a lot that needed to happen for that to be operationally efficient and sound, right, with customers. The risk, we take it almost every day when we go and discuss with customers, partners, and just challenge a portion of how work is done and sort of like reevaluate that. And sometimes it doesn't go as well as you would imagine, right? We got a lot, I think less now, that things, it's always like that. Once it's proven, once other big players start doing it, it becomes a little bit more obvious that it should always have happened. But there has been a lot of, there is no point in changing this or that, or it will never work. So I think that's reassessing, how to do something is a risk that we take all the time. But then grounding it into a concrete flow, and that's the Swiss attitude that goes behind it, right? To be very methodic on how to implement it. That's how we are minimizing that risk, and we ensure that we bring results, which is the most important thing.
Fun. So yeah, convincing people that the world is indeed not flat but round took a little while for the.
It has burned more than one person, definitely.
Yes, exactly. Burned is actually, unfortunately, a very accurate term. Thank you so much, Naik Londono and Gadi Benmoshe, for sharing your insights on your important work at AELER Technologies and on the future of customs innovation. It's really been a fun conversation.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Pushing the Envelope, Life at the Cutting Edge of Customs Innovation, a podcast that profiles leaders in customs and their views, ideas, and inspirations about the future of customs innovation. Join us soon for our next Pencast and another insightful conversation with customs trendsetters and forward thinkers. Thank you.